Welcome to New Possibilities, Power Without Fear. So I'm going to do a series of videos tonight, some live streams, talking about a wide range of different issues. I'm going to do at least three Google Hangouts, and I'm going to do them separately because I know a lot of people don't have the time to sit through and watch one long Hangout. So, so I'm going to talk about three different subjects, and I hope you all can rock with me. I'm going to wait till some more people come in before I get started. Shout out to Big Game Orenthal James. Shout out to you. Thanks for tuning in. So I'm going to wait a few more minutes before I get started. I'm going to talk about at least three subjects tonight. If I'm lucky, if I have enough time, I will go on to a fourth subject, but the fourth subject will be on my I Declare War channel. Hopefully, I can put it on my on my I Declare War channel from my phone. I'm on business travel, so I don't have the time. I'm not at a computer, so I can't easily switch the account. So hopefully, I can do it from here. So I see that we have a few people in the house, so I'm gonna get started. I don't want to delay it too long. But you all know about this show, The Talk. Apparently, they were talking about Meghan Markle and her racial identity. And I'm going to go through some of the things that they said. I'm going to provide my brief commentary, and then I'm also going to take questions from you all and respond to the things that you all have to say in the chat room. This shouldn't be a long discussion, but I think it's something that's worthy of discussion. It's something that comes up on a lot of these live streams, this whole question of racial identity, the definition of blackness, the definition of whiteness, and what it means to be biracial. So, on this show called The Talk, which is similar to The View, where you have these women talking about a wide range of issues, they were talking about Meghan Markle. She's the black, well, that's the whole issue, her racial identity. She's a woman who married Prince Harry, and they're pregnant now. She's pregnant and she's going to have a child soon. And, this issue of her identity came up. So on this show, The Talk, Cheryl Underwood said that Meghan Markle brought blackness to the royal family. And in response, Sharon Osburne said she ain't black, basically saying Meghan Markle is not black. And then Eve chimed in and said she's black, she's half black. And then Sharon Osborne said, um, I know, but she doesn't look black. And then Eve went on to say that black people come in all shades of brown. Shout out to King Hebrew. Thanks for tuning in. So those are the basic facts of the situation. And basically, you have this big issue about whether or not this woman is black or white or biracial. What is her identity? Now, looking at her, like, I didn't know that she was black. It's something that came to my attention. I didn't know she had any black in her background or anything just by looking at her. It was later that I found out that she had a black mother. And, a lot of black women are celebrating, the fact that she married Prince Harry. A lot of women were talking about, oh, how great it is that she's marrying this prince. And I want to just talk about that for a second. First of all, here you have a woman who is racially mixed, a woman who, by her appearance, doesn't appear to be African American. Like, if someone were to just look at her and they didn't know her racial background, like I didn't know her background, the first thing that they would say is not that she's black. Like, that's not the first thought that would enter their mind. And then also, this woman doesn't seem like she identifies with her blackness, like her black heritage or anything like that. I notice she acknowledges that she is biracial. But in terms of identifying with black culture, embracing black history, I don't get that impression from her. And this woman, from what I understand, her father is a white man, her mother's black. Um, and so in terms of her marrying a white man, that's not something that should be a surprise. I mean, her father was white. This woman appears, and I don't know like enough about her background, about how she was raised or whatever, but she appears to be somebody that was raised to assimilate, somebody that was raised to fit in, not somebody that was raised in a like a pro-black or black nationalist type of environment where she was taught to embrace her blackness or anything like that. I don't get the impression that she is one to embrace her black identity as much as she embraces her white identity. So you have this woman who identifies herself as biracial. Um, she doesn't look black. She doesn't embrace black cultural customs, at least from what we can tell just on the surface. But yet and still, you have all these black women celebrating her as if she's just, as if she's a regular black woman. So I think that that raises issues. I think that it is, another indication that some black women are desperate for white validation, for white approval, for white promotion, and for white love. And when I talk about, this whiteness, in terms of approval, validation, and love, I'm primarily referring to, um, validation from the white man, validation and support and love from the white man. So they see this as something great because you have this prince who's embracing this black woman, and they see that like as epitomizing what a lot of them strive for. And it's the whole fairy tale thing, the idea of a woman living happily ever after, marrying this prince in shining armor. A lot of times people have been indoctrinated with that whole idea because of the fairy tales that we're taught as children and stuff. So a lot of women, whether subconsciously or consciously, they had this desire to have that knight in shining armor to rescue them, to save them, so they can live happily ever after. And I think that this whole situation involving her plays into that that image of what a relationship should be about, or the romanticism, in terms of like the marriage ceremony and marrying so-called royalty and stuff like that. So I think a lot of women, are just seeking the validation, so they identify her as black because of that, because they see that they hope to see themselves in a similar situation. They are living vicariously through this woman, Meghan Markle. So that's one thing that has to be touched upon. And I think that as far as I'm concerned, like if somebody is biracial, no matter how they identify themselves, whether they call themselves biracial or whether they try to identify as white, the larger society will still view them as black. So I know that a lot of people have an objection to the one drop rule, and I understand that. But the fact of the matter is, race really is just a social construct. Race is not something that, this scientific, it's more of a social construct than it is a scientific thing. And in this society in which we live, um, someone that's biracial is treated as black, they are viewed as black. So, for all intents and purposes, despite their own individual interpretation, despite these labels that these super pro black people want to throw on them, the fact of the matter is they are treated as black, and for all intents and purposes, since race is a social construct, they are in fact black. A lot of them, even though they are biracial, they face the same type of discrimination that African Americans face. They're still called the N word. I had a conversation with someone on my Facebook page. I posted a status raising this question about her identity, and I have people, cousins who are biracial, and they were talking about their experience. Just like what they went through as a biracial child. They talked about like how among white people they're viewed as black, and they're called, they can be called the N word. They're treated as black, and again that affirms the point that I made earlier about how this larger society views and treats black people, regardless, or biracial people, regardless of how they define themselves, the society still treats them as if they are black. Um, so that's one thing that they pointed out, and they also pointed out how some of them, like for instance, if they're raised in a predominantly white environment, in a single parent household, for instance, where one of their parents is white, so they're raised by a white person and they live in a predominantly white community, they're going to take on certain mannerisms and be more assimilated than other African Americans. And because of the fact that they're biracial and they are raised in that environment, a lot of black people will not even view them as black and won't even treat them as black, and will constantly question their blackness and all that kind of stuff, and label them as other. And I think that that creates a situation where they are alienated, and it's a messed up predicament. And that's just another reason why, like in my mind, um, why it's better to maintain relationships among your own. Like, it's better for black men to be with black women, and vice versa. It's better to marry your own, so your children do not have to go through that kind of situation where they're conflicted, where they're not embraced by either society. So either the black community or the white community fully. So I think that that's a another reason again why we should be about promoting black love. And there's nothing wrong with um, there's absolutely nothing wrong with black men being with black women and vice versa. It's just like in this society, for some reason, like they make that like some kind of bad thing to talk about. Like there are people on here who will attack you if you embrace your own and accept your own. I'm just moving to another spot because my phone's running out of power, so just bear with me a second. So yeah, I mean it's just a mess up situation, that they're in this situation where they're conflicted. They're not embraced by one side and not fully embraced by the other side. And another thing that I have to say about this subject is this, man. You know, um, Black people in this country are already a minority. And for us to start dividing ourselves up into all these categories, that just undermines our political strength. Like, I mean, there are many people that are biracial greatly to the black community, um, in all kinds of ways, whether we're talking about politics, whether we're talking about law, whether we're talking about culturally. They've contributed to black. And if we are going to be absolutists and purists in terms of what it means to be black, then nobody is black by that definition. Africans, Americans are people of mixed heritage, not by choice. Like often we are of mixed heritage because of the legacy of slavery, because of the systematic rape that our ancestors had to deal with. Our great 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 grandmothers were raped by the slave master. So we have white, heritage, whether we want it or not. You know, Many of us, in the black community have mixed heritage with Native Americans and other groups of people. So if we were going to Yeah, so I'm having some buffering issues, so I hope y'all can bear with me. But yes, but African Americans are a group of people that have a mixed heritage. I mean, of course, there's some African Americans who don't, but because of the legacy of slavery and because of integration in the society, many of us do. So if we were to take an absolute stand, none of us would be black, officially. And if we were to take such a stand and divide ourselves up into all these subcategories, we would be like people in Latin America, where you have all these subcategories of people when they're all black. And all that does is divide and conquer a marginalized group of people when you divide yourself up into all these categories. And black people, so-called biracial people have given much to our community. I mean, you just think about like great people like a Frederick Douglass or even a Booker T. And I've done videos critical of him, but he did do great things in our community that can't be denied. When you look at people like a Thurgood Marshall, like a brother, a biracial friend of mine from college, like when I raised the question, he posted all these images of biracial black people, quote unquote biracial people that I consider to be black, who've done all kinds of great things, like a Thurgood Marshall, somebody that paved the way in terms of civil rights litigation. Fought against segregation in this country, fought against Jim Crow, used the law to fight for justice for black people. When you look at a Bar Marley, like somebody that produced some of the most conscious and political music ever, somebody that his message was about Africa and African people, black people. So his contribution can't be denied, and I don't think that it's correct or right to negate him or to say that he's not black enough because one of his parents was white. Well, I mean, there are other examples like a Adam Clayton Powell, as his brother was pointing out. A man who was all about black power. One of the most militant politicians of his day, and period. One of the most militant politicians ever. So I just think that it's fundamentally wrong to write off people and just like alienate them, say, oh, you're not black enough for us and this and that. Now, the other thing I want to address is this whole issue of colorism. Like some people said, well, these biracial people, they're privileged, they're more privileged by the society, they're more embraced by society. So we shouldn't embrace them. We should treat them as other and all that kind of stuff. And that's something that I don't agree with. Like I do agree that they are treated differently. We understand the problem of colorism in the black community and in society. Like this society treats lighter skinned black people differently than it does darker skinned black people. And black people within the black community treat each other differently based on skin color, unfortunately. So you do have this skin color hierarchy that continues to exist despite all these years after Jim Crow. So yeah, so it's a very important issue. Like I think that that's a valid point, but it still doesn't negate the fact that light skinned people were discriminated against just like black, darker skinned black people by this society. Um, So yeah, those are my thoughts about this, man. I think that Meghan Markle is black, even though I think that she's black um, by society standards, whether she likes it or not. But ultimately, like for me, like another component of whether or not I define somebody as black is whether or not they embrace their black identity. So if somebody doesn't identify as black, um, that would make me less inclined to embrace them as a black person. Or if they don't, embrace black culture and all that kind of stuff and have black pride and, a sense of self, then it's harder for me to accept them. So I know that society views, in the larger sense, views Meghan Markle as black. And that's part of the reason why they made such a big deal about her marrying this prince, because society views her that way. Um, But again, the problem with her is she doesn't embrace blackness. She doesn't seem like someone that embraces her blackness. She seems like somebody who's fully assimilated, somebody that's trying to be accepted by white society and stuff like that. So that just makes it problematic to fully embrace her. Um, and basically, I'm just saying that the society views her as black. I'm not going to embrace her as like thoroughly embrace her because of the way her approach to race issues. Like it doesn't seem like she embraces her black history and her black people and stuff like that. So it's harder for me to like embrace her as a black person. And and I don't understand like why so many people are seeing themselves in her. Like why? So, I mean, I already pointed out part of the reason why, but it's like hard for somebody to see themselves in her when she doesn't even identify with black people. But yeah, I just wanted to make these quick comments. So I want to see what you all have to say before I close out. I want to thank y'all for tuning in. I truly appreciate it. So Summer's Sunshine said she's mixed race. There's no confusion on my part. Black women are celebrating because her mom is black and her mom raised her to put her needs before anyone else's. Also, her mom moved her into her home with her husband. Um, she's proud of her mom. That's what Summer Sunshine says. But it just doesn't seem like she identifies as black. Like, even though she's proud of her mom was at the marriage, at the wedding, and her white father wasn't. It just doesn't come like she doesn't have any of the like cultural mannerisms of a African American, somebody that's black and stuff like that. So it makes it harder for me to identify her as black, like more so than somebody like a Halle Berry or someone else, other people of color like a Jordan Peele, who did the Get Out film and stuff like that. It doesn't seem like she identifies with black culture or even acts like she's black at all. And then like very, she looks more European than she does black. So I can understand why, people would say, oh, she's not black. And why, the woman, Sharon Osburne, would say what she said. So let me continue on. And Big Game said the irony is if she married a black basketball player, they would say she's not black. Yeah, I mean, you know what? That may be I think that's a valid point because you do have a lot of women that are celebrating her as a black woman. They're like happy to see a black woman marry this white prince. But these same women would be questioning her blackness if she married, like if a black basketball player or some other black person married her, they may be raising questions about, like, is she black enough? They may raise questions about colorism and, whether or not she's black, period. So I think that is a good point, a valid point. So somebody said she is biracial, she's not black. And again, like I just have a different definition, just based on society and based on the fact that race is a social construct, because like when you break it down in terms of the genome project and stuff like that, the differences between people of different races is so minor and insignificant that human beings have far more in common than they do have differences and stuff like that. This idea of race is a social construct, and a lot of the differences are cultural and stuff. So because of that, I would see, I view her as, I do view her as black. Like despite the questions I raised about her identity and stuff, I do ultimately view her as black. But again, whether she wants to be black or not. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to embrace her like a sister or anything like that for all the reasons I said before. So somebody, Summer Sunshine, said they're celebrating the success of her mom. How is that success of her mom? Like, her mom isn't the one getting married. It's this her daughter that's getting married. How is that success marrying? I mean, I can see how you would say from a material kind of way of success that she married into this royal family. But it's like I don't understand like why people are celebrating that. I mean, do people understand like what these royals did, like what the British did? I mean, they colonized Africa. They raped Africa and African people of their resources. So why are people happy to see these colonial monarchs marrying a black woman in their family, given that legacy of plunder given that legacy of exploitation and oppression? Why are people celebrating this? That's what I don't understand. So a lot of people are saying they see her as biracial. So Summer says she does. Summer doesn't know any black people who view her as black. I don't know. Like based on all this commentary and all this hoopla and excitement, how you have all these these women who are swirlers like celebrating this as some kind of win or something like that. I think that goes contrary to this whole thing. And then another point that I want to raise real quick is like the problem is like this woman, excuse me. Yeah, so this woman is going on to like she married this white guy. She's gonna have a kid with this white guy, and it's like a few, just give it a couple of more generations, or even one more generation. The blackness in her family is going to be erased. Her black legacy is going to be erased, and that's part of the problem with these types of unions because too often, what happens is you have these biracial children, they end up marrying white or marrying some other lighter race of people or whatever, and before you know it, the blackness in the family are practically erased. Just like you had that woman, that politician from Massachusetts, um, Elizabeth Edwards, I think that's her name, who was talking about how she's part Native American, like 1/32nd Native American, like barely Native American, and yet clinging on to that heritage, like as if that truly defines her when it's like a tiny fraction of who she is. That's how a lot of these kids are going to end up. Like when they have these parents that constantly intermarry and stuff like that to such a degree that the blackness is erased. And that's just another one of the problems with these interracial relationships. And then like just just the fact that you have children that have these conflict in terms of their identity. They're not being embraced by either white people or black people fully. So it's like, why go through that stuff? Why not just love your own and accept your own instead of trying to embrace some other culture and get love and acceptance and validation from some other culture? Um, so let's see what other comments we have here. Yeah, so Big Game said races are different. Black people have different hair, more faster twitch muscle, faster reflexes, develop faster, look better, and all that kind of. Oh, hold on, excuse me. Yeah, somehow this thing, it's like if you hold down too long, it pops up with these different options to block and all that kind of stuff. I'm not trying to block anybody right now. But yeah, I mean, all you have to do is look up the Genome Project. That's a scientific study and all that kind of stuff about race, and I realize, obviously there are physical differences, like differences in appearance and all that kind of stuff. But in a big scheme of things, the differences are relatively minor compared to the similarities. But I think that our differences are beautiful. Like I embrace our racial identity. I think that we should cherish who we are and stuff like that. We should love what our heritage, our history, our natural African features. We should embrace that, and we should want to be with our own. And even though like race is like a, primarily a social construct, it's a real construct. Like even though it's social, the fact of the matter is, black people as a group are oppressed and treated differently from other groups of people. So why not unite and try to deal with, the issues that confront us as a people? Instead of fragmenting ourselves into these categories of, light versus dark, men versus women, um, young versus old, and all those different categories that were mentioned in the Willie Lynch letter. Even though that's not a real letter, I think the concept about divide and conquer is something that is still a valid lesson that can be learned even from something that's fiction. So let's see what else people are saying. So Big Game said that biracial people lie about being mistreated by blacks. I don't think so, man, because I mean they're not mistreated to the same degree as as they are in terms of white racism or anything like that. But they aren't like fully embraced by a lot of black people. I mean, all you have to do is go to YouTube where you have all these people saying that they're not black and saying all these derogatory things about them. All you have to do is go listen to an irritated genie or somebody like that, saying all these disparaging things about biracial people. So yeah, I mean there is an issue in our community where people don't embrace biracial people. And I do get your point about biracial people being placed on a pedestal by, some black people because of the colorism piece. You still have black people that idolize lighter skin and all that kind of stuff. And you see it in film where, the black man's love interest is going to be some fair skinned woman and they present that fair skinned woman as some kind of standard of beauty. And I saw this movie with Kevin Hart recently called Night School, and here you had a short guy, who didn't graduate from, high school and stuff like that. And in the film, his love interest is this woman that looks like a model, and she's lighter skinned and stuff like that. And that's what you have in a lot of these films. Like, rarely do they have like a dark skinned woman as the love interest and stuff. And yes, they do place these lighter skinned people on a pedestal. They place biracial people on a pedestal and stuff. And like as many people have said, they essentially try to replace, people who are darker skinned with biracial people. So that is a very real issue um, that has to be addressed and discussed. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, so Pray for the Wolves said, yeah, there are lots of contributions, but still keep it 100. They are biracial. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if somebody identifies as black, they appear to be black. Like some biracial people, they they don't look like you can't even tell that they're biracial. Like some of them, you can't tell that they're biracial. They just look like a lighter skinned black person. So if they embrace their identity and they are committed to the struggle, I embrace them as a brother or a sister, as far as I'm concerned. Like, I'm not going to, like a Barack Obama, like, even though there are certain questions people may have about him speaking out strongly enough on black issues, the fact of the matter is, despite the fact that he's biracial and all that kind of stuff, as people will say, society constantly reminded him that he was a black man. When they depicted him and his family as a family of chimpanzees, it made it clear that they viewed him as a black man. When when this congressman yelled out, "You lied" during a State of the Union address, they made it clear that they viewed him as a black man. When they depicted him as a witch doctor with a bone in his nose and all that kind of stuff, they viewed him as a black man. When they said that he wasn't born in America, that he's from some other country, they made it clear that they didn't view him as some biracial privileged person. They viewed him as the N word. So yeah, so I mean, it's like they're not treated. They're treated just like any other black person. Often, despite the issue of colorism and all that kind of stuff. People called Obama all kinds of disrespectful things, disrespected him completely. Reminding us that biracial people are viewed and treated as black in this society. And I could go on and on about some of the beneficial things that Obama did for the black community, but I won't. But that's another example of the contributions that many people make to the black community that are quote unquote biracial. And as far as I'm concerned, if you're contributing to the black community like that and you identify with your black heritage, you are black and you're a brother and sister as far as I'm concerned. So somebody said, "Do you think?" Oh, Def Rocker asked, "Do you think a person can be pro-black if their spouse is biracial?" Yeah, I mean, yes, I do believe that. Like, because I identify biracial people as black. You know, if they embrace their identity and they are committed to their people, I view them as black and I treat them as such. So I don't view somebody that's with a biracial person as not pro-black, because they're with another black person. It's only recently that we started calling people that are quote unquote biracial. Somebody like a Frederick Douglass, he wasn't considered biracial. He was beaten just like any other slave. He was sold just like slave. He was, you know, denied the right to read and all that kind of stuff, just like any other slave. Like, so I just think that we need to quit like dividing ourselves up, and it's like I understand like people saying, well, you're letting the white man define blackness or whatever. I get that, but at the same time, I also understand that by alienating biracial people, we're only weakening ourselves. Just imagine somebody telling Bob Marley, "You can't play that conscious black music because you're biracial," or somebody telling Adam Clayton Powell that he can't be advocating black power because he's too light skinned, or somebody telling Malcolm X that he's not black enough because his mother is biracial or something like that, man. It's just like, to me, that's ludicrous, man. So let me continue on. Yeah, I mean, I hear you, Elaine Lloyd, about why we pushing black on people who don't want to be black. Yeah, I don't. I'm not going to force that person to be black. Like whether they want to identify with blackness or not, society treats them as black. I'm not going to embrace somebody as a brother or a sister if they don't embrace their own blackness and their own history. So I hear you on that. So someone said she even had plastic surgery to get rid of her black features. Now I don't know about that. Like that's my first time hearing that, but I wouldn't be surprised because again, like I said before, she does not look black at all. She doesn't have many African features. So I get that. So Hasib said that he's biracial and he caught hell growing up in a black community. Yeah, and I don't doubt that at all, man. Because I mean, you know how kids are. Like, kids will tease you because they see you as too dark. They will tease you because they see you as too light. They will, kids are mean, man. Um, and I don't doubt that at all. I don't doubt that at all, man. So Hasid went on to say, I was never put on a pedestal for being biracial or light skinned. Well, I found that to be unusual. Like I know that a lot of times, like a lot. I just remember back in the day, like a lot of girls, teenage girls would want to be with somebody that's light so they could have lighter kids and all that kind of stuff. Um, back in the day, but nowadays it's flipped. Like a lot of women like men who are darker complexion and all that kind of stuff. Psycho said Meghan Markle is so not black. And I hear you because for all the reasons that I said before. Um, Yeah, so Jumpman said Bob Marley was biracial, but he never claimed it. I see Bob Marley as a black man. Yeah, Bob Marley wasn't running around saying, I'm half black, I'm half white. I'm not a black man. He identified as a black man, and that goes to my point again. If a biracial person identifies with black, they embrace their culture and their heritage as a black person, then I embrace them as a brother or sister. But if they're on some wishy-washy stuff, where they deny their blackness, like a Tiger Woods, where he's like saying I'm a cobbling Asian, I'm part Asian, I'm part this, I'm part that, and he doesn't want to even be seen with black people. Like he's with these white women after white woman after white woman, no black women in the mix. I can't embrace somebody like that. I can't embrace them as a brother, man. If they want to be white, just let them stay over there with those white people, as far as I'm concerned. But even again, no matter how much they want to be white, the society will continue to treat them as the N word. Yeah. So Rita said, about Osborne. She said, "What does she know about black people? I never seen her around any until she was on that stupid show." Yeah, so it's like a certain kind of arrogance that comes along with some white person telling, you know, black people what black people should define as black. Yeah, Elizabeth Warren is her name. Yeah, I misspoke. Yeah, her name is Elizabeth Warren is the one that has like one 32nd percent of her self is Native American, and she's like trying to tout that and stuff like that. And the Cherokees, which she identified with, like basically, disclaimed her. Basically said, "Well, you're not, Cherokee because of that and stuff like that." But she's like running around here, making such a big deal about that. And I just find that to be interesting, man. So Kevin Smith said Meghan Markle is black because she married a white man. Had she married a black man like Therese, she would be non-black. That's like I guess he's saying in the minds of some black women, and unfortunately, that's true. So Hasib said all blacks are not predominantly fast twitch. Do not all have fast twitch muscles and stuff like that. And that's true. Like all these stereotypes that people have, like about black men being faster and stuff like or stronger and this and that. There's some. I mean, it's like it's feeding into a lot of stereotypes, and a lot of black men don't necessarily fit that stereotype of being like fast or being like having natural physical abilities, and it's like physical abilities in terms of playing basketball and all that kind of stuff, all those stereotypes that they have about black people. So Rita Johnson pointed out that Prince Harry wore a Nazi uniform to a party, and she asked, "Do you think she knows?" Yeah, I think everybody knows about that. And again, it's not a surprise, sadly, that a black person woman, quote unquote biracial woman would marry somebody that does stuff like that, because we've seen examples of some black women marrying outright racists. So I'm not surprised, unfortunately. Yeah, so people are saying her name. Yeah, I get it now. I misspoke, but yeah, the name is Elizabeth Warren. I think I said Elizabeth Edwards earlier, so y'all gotta excuse that error. That's the thing about doing stuff live, man. You make a mistake and you're stuck with it. You can't go back and correct stuff. Um, So fresh and sassy, plant-based living said, "Fortunately for me, I'm black like my daddy. However, when people see my hair, the first thing they want to know is if I'm mixed with who I'm mixed with." And she said, "I am black." Um, Elaine Lloyd said, "We can't accept the Paris Jacksons and racial Dolezals as black." But we can't be saying that biracials who identify as black and who look black aren't black. What's next? A reverse paper bag test. Yeah, that's a good point. Shout out to Jenny Kiss. Yeah, and Def Rocker pointed out that some Cherokees had black slaves. That's a good point. I saw this article and I posted on my Facebook page where where it indicates that as well. Like it talks about how many Native Americans had black slaves. Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank y'all for tuning in. For those people who are joining this after the fact, please rate, comment, and subscribe. And I encourage everybody to thumbs this video up. I want to thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your support. I'm going to do at least 2 more Google Hangouts tonight. There's a lot of stuff on my mind that I just need to get out of my system. So I hope y'all can rock with your man tonight. The next video is going to be about I want to talk about this issue of polygamy and stuff. I saw this very interesting video that Derek Jackson had posted on his Instagram, and I saw, um, you know, Ayana's response to it. She goes by the name Goddess Ayana, but I'm not calling any woman or any man a god or a goddess. But yeah, so I may talk about that next. Also, I want to talk about the Rihanna situation where she took a bold and courageous stance. So y'all look out for those tonight. Peace.